David Copperfield, chapter 11. Financial difficulties. As I told you, the word financial, it means something related to money. Okay? Difficulties, financial problems faced David and Miss Betsy. The content of this chapter. Mr. Bigotti searched for Emily. David proposed to Dora. He wanted to marry her. Miss Betsy lost her money. Uriah's control over Mr. Wakefield. In this chapter, everything will turn upside down. Okay? Mr. Bigotti kept searching for Emily. And he went to Mrs. Steerforth to ask her if she knew anything about Emily and her son. She was very rude with them, Mr. Bigotti and David. She didn't welcome them at home, and she spoke in a bad way about Emily. She said that she was an ignorant girl, not well educated, and that Steerforth was better than her, so she didn't accept that marriage. And she wouldn't help her son to marry that girl. They were totally disappointed after that meeting. Okay? Then David went to attend Dora's birthday. He was invited to attend her birthday. He wanted to marry her. He asked her to marry her, and she accepted that. But they kept their engagement secret between each other, and they dealt to send a letter to each other every day. Okay? Why did they keep that secret? Because David's annual income was only 90 pounds. He wanted to increase his income, then open the issue with Mr. Spenlow. The first point, Mr. Bigotti searched for Emily. Mr. Bigotti searched for Emily. Mr. Bigotti went in search of Emily. He went alone. He didn't want to take Ham, as I told you. He didn't allow Ham to go with him. Mr. Bigotti visited Mrs. Steerforth, who had already heard the news that her son went away with a daughter called Emily. Okay? She was very rude about Emily, saying that the girl was uneducated and ignorant, and that there was no way in which her son would ever marry her. Mr. Bigotti was totally disappointed for that news. Okay? David went with him, and he didn't like the way Mrs. Steerforth, she here stands for Mrs. Steerforth, spoke with them. David proposed to Dora. David was invited to a picnic to celebrate Dora's birthday. David asked Dora to marry him. She accepted happily, but decided to keep their engagement a secret from Mr. Spenlow, as I told you the reason. David wrote to Agnes after Dora accepted him. He wrote to Agnes telling her the news, with the good news of his engagement and the news about Emily running away with Steerforth. Now, Agnes was right to advise David that he made a false friendship with Steerforth. Okay? Miss Betsy lost her money. Let's know how. In the past time, the lawyers used to control the money of their customers. Okay? Miss Betsy left everything to Mr. Wakefield to control that, and he used to invest her money in a very good way. But after he turned to be a drunkard by Uriah Heep, who intended to do that to push Mr. Wakefield to lose his mind and to sign papers which gave Uriah Heep the right to be partner with Mr. Wakefield. Okay, and that successfully, unfortunately, happened. Mr. Wakefield gave the authority to Uriah Heep to be his partner. Step by step, he took his mother and lived with Mr. Wakefield and Agnes in the same house. He took the well-painted room for himself and he gave Mr. Wakefield the old room. Okay, and that upset Agnes totally, but she could do nothing because everything was legally with the papers, so she couldn't kick them out of the house. One day of Copperfield's return home, he found his aunt waiting for him at home. She asked him if he had become independent, يعني means can you spend money on yourself, can you be independent or not yet, okay, and was able to take care of himself. He was totally surprised. Why? She told him the reasons, that she lost all her money and that she had to leave her rich cozy house to live in a summer cottage she owned, okay, and that she lost everything, okay. She went on to say that she had lost all her money and was financially ruined due to some bad investments made by Mr. Wakefield. Up till now, they didn't know that Uriah Heep was the main reason. But David understood that because he's now a lawyer, okay? David wanted to help his aunt, and he asked Mr. Spenlow to return the £1,000 given to him for his training. David, as I told you, he finished the training, but he had to spend some times in Spenlow and Jerkins to practice being a lawyer. So up till now he couldn't work as a lawyer. He didn't take the report from Mr. Spenlow and Jerkins to be an independent lawyer. He asked them to forget about the report and that he didn't want to be graduated. Give me the £1,000. I don't want to be a lawyer. Mr. Spenlow refused. He told him, I can't do that because I'm not alone. I have Jerkins with me. And he would refuse that. So David tried to find another job for himself to have more money. He went to work as a secretary in Dr. Strong's school, okay, with £50 to spend money to have 90 plus 50, 140 pounds a year. David wanted to help his aunt and he asked Mr. Spenlow to return the £1,000 given to him for his training, but Mr. Spenlow refused, saying that it was impossible. Okay? Now, Uriah's control over Mr. Wakefield. David made his way home and was happy to see Agnes waiting for him. When he returned home one day, he found Agnes waiting for him. She had traveled to London accompanied by her father, and Uriah Heep was with them, okay, to visit with Miss Trotwood. Again, Agnes went on to say that Uriah and his mother now lived with Agnes. He told David that Uriah and his mother went to live with Agnes and Mr. Wakefield. And as I told you, he took the good rooms and he gave them the old ones. And that Uriah had more influence over Mr. Wakefield than before. Why? Because of the drinking habit, as I told you. To help the financial situation, David went to work part-time as a secretary to Dr. Strong. David didn't mention any of this in his daily letters to Dora. He didn't tell her what happened to his aunt and that he worked two jobs, part-time one and with her father. Okay, and that was David's mistake. He wasn't honest with her. He didn't tell her the truth. Okay. David knew that Mr. Micawber was going to work as Heap's clerk. It was the third surprise about Mr. Micawber. Tommy Traddles met David and he told him that Mr. Micawber was going to work with a man called Uriah Heep. He would be his clerk, his assistant. Okay? That surprised David. This is the end of